Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2023 Virtual Home Fair, the inaugural Home Fair virtual style here. I'm your host, Daniel Druid, and I'm joined by my colleague, Yavita Kodamayamochi, and we are building inspectors. So the purpose of today's meeting is to kind of go over the inspections process for a single-family renovation or an addition construction project that you might undertake and what to expect. Yavita is going to be managing the chat, so if you have questions that kind of populate in the chat, Yavita will be able to help you out there, and I will be going through this presentation for you. To kind of start things off, I'd like to go over our purpose and values. Our main purpose here is to help people build a safe and livable, inclusive Seattle. Kind of comes through as us inspectors. Our main job here is to make sure that the home that you are occupying is safe to do so. There's our values listed there below. You can find that on the website as well. Okay, so you have your permit and you're ready to undertake your construction process. So one of the biggest questions that we get at the beginning is, how do I schedule my inspection to begin my construction process? Well, so once you have your permit, you can do it online through the website listed here on this page. And yeah, you go in the portal, you enter your record number on the main search box, and it'll pull up all the required inspections for your particular project. Does a pretty good job on the portal to follow you through the required inspections that you might need for your project. And so the portal is a good way to do it online, or you can always call the phone number that's listed below to go ahead and schedule your inspection. Okay, so rid of this real quick. What inspections do I need? So this is a pretty common question that we get a lot as inspectors, and it really does depend on the scope of your project. So for example, if you have a small kitchen remodel, you're not going to need nearly as many inspections as you would for a full-blown addition or a new build project. So in order of this, we're gonna break this down in the next slides, kind of on the different inspections that they do follow in order. But for your first ground inspection, that's basically just an inspection that's required when there's any sort of ground disturbance. And yes, that even goes for something like a deck addition where you're going to be cutting into the ground and adding some footings. We would still want to come out and make sure that the ground disturbance is being handled properly. And of course, then you have a foundation inspection, which is what we'll have to come and inspect your forms and your setbacks to make sure that they're okay to proceed with a concrete pour. The next spot is the TESC. That's the
Daniel, are you still there? We've lost your audio.
website. The next one is structural, and that one is basically the construction of your building from the exterior's perspective. So your shear wall nailing, all the anchor bolts, hold down placement, all that stuff. So that one is what we go out first after it's been framed up, and we want to give you the okay to cover the exterior and put a roof on. Next inspection would be a framing inspection. And so that happens kind of before you install your insulation and after all the other trades, your electrical and your mechanical and plumbing trades have done their work and have approved for cover. Oftentimes you'll have an underfloor inspection if you have a crawl space, so we'll want to get under there before you put your flooring down and we won't be able to see it. Next inspection is going to be an insulation. That happens before you install your drywall, of course. So once you get your insulation into the Washington State Energy Code installed correctly, we'll take a look at that as well. And then we've got site final, which is not Yavita and I's job personally. We are building inspectors, but we have the site inspection department that'll come out and make sure that everything on the exterior and landscape of your site is well maintained and completed. And then the final inspection that is performed by Yavita and I in the building inspection department, we make sure that everything else is closed out and your plumbing, electrical, mechanical, sewer, everyone else is signed off on the project and it's complete, and we make sure that it's safe to occupy. And we'll have a moment at the end here to answer some questions on each of these as well. So I'm sure if you have questions, don't worry. Okay, so first ground inspection. So this is going to be really the first one that we are called out to join to look at for your site. So Anytime there's any sort of ground disturbance that's happening on your job site, we'll want to come and take a look at that. Just make sure that your erosion control measures are taken care of and that you are cleared to dig. Next one's going to be a foundation and setback inspection. Now this one, you want to call both of these at the same time, and you'll see they're two different categories and on your permit and through the SDCI portal there. But the setback is basically making sure that your project is placed correctly on your site. So this is really big in Seattle, where we're doing a lot of infill projects and we're coming up tight against property lines. Almost always, if the project is significant, you'll require to have a survey. So you have a professional surveyor come out and actually pin the corners of your project to make sure that you're building exactly where it needs to go. For something like a small deck, we can typically measure off of the existing property to be able to pull your setbacks on that sort of condition. So, but yeah, this is where your project starts. Obviously, if you're doing an addition, you'll have a foundation and setback inspection that's required. Temporary erosion control. So there you can see we've got our stormwater socks there to collect any stormwater control. And this is, again, the one that kind of happens periodically through the life of your project. The site inspector will be visiting the site just to make sure that there isn't any sort of drainage issues happening on the job site. Structural inspection. So we've got our foundation in and we framed up our structure here. So this is the one that you'll want to call out first if you're trying to cover your exterior. So we're looking at really important stuff on this one. We're looking at to make sure that your shear panels, your plywood on the exterior there is installed correctly, and that the roof framing
Daniel,
so hello?
can you hear? Sorry, this is Daniel Copo. We've lost your audio a couple of times. It's kind of odd, but I thought I'd point that out. I don't know if you're using a wireless headset or something.
I mean, my signal's bad. I'm sorry. We lost audio from me?
Yeah, a couple times for 10 or 12 seconds.
Okay, on structural here?
Yeah, why don't you start there again?
Okay, my apologies. Thanks for
No,
pointing that out,
it's
Daniel.
technology. There's nothing intended, certainly.
Yeah, okay. So back to structural. So after you've erected your structure here and we're trying to cover the exterior with either your siding or your roofing, you want to have the inspector come out and take a look at this. And the main things we're looking at is making sure that the structure is built to plan, especially in terms of your shear panel, your exterior plywood, as it relates to your hold downs and on the interior that are fastened correctly to the foundation. This is a big one to make sure that under any seismic event that your structure stays put. And so we come out to inspect this to give you the okay to cover your exterior. So the structural inspections really relates to before you want to get your siding and roofing covered. And on the other side is our framing inspection. So this one, we're going to be going into the house and examining all the framing members on the inside. Now, you want to call out a framing inspection after all the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing trades have come out and they have all been inspected, okay to cover. And so, because we want to make sure that none of those trades have poked any large holes in framing members that are too large that are going to compromise the structure. We're also going to be looking at draft stopping and your air sealing. So any plate penetrations through the floor, we look at all the fire protection details at this time as well to make sure that there's not going to be any sort of fire hazards with the way that your framing, air sealing, and draft stopping has been done. So we'll take a good look at the interior of your project during the framing inspection before you insulate. That's a pretty big one there. Next one is the insulation. So after we've had the framing inspection, you've been given okay to insulate, then you will be insulating to the Washington State Energy Code. And if you're following plans, they will often detail what R value needs to go in each part of your structure and what type of insulation product you'll be using. And so we'll also come back out after you've insulated to make sure that all of the insulation has been installed properly. Oftentimes there'll be small corrections that we have requested during a framing inspection that we'll often have to take on when we come and look at your installation. So one thing we like to do is try to keep the project moving for you guys. And so if there are small corrections, sometimes we are able to look at those during later phases of the project. And then the next inspection that you'll be seeing from the SDCI building department is going to be your site final. So that's the exterior of the project. It's going to be the site inspector comes out to make sure that your permeable pavers are installed correctly and all the drainage control measures have been done to final. And so that's where the site inspector comes in to give that blessing. And then the very last inspection that we do is going to be the building final. That's when everything else is done, completed, and you're about ready to occupy the project. The biggest thing we run into as building inspectors is a lot of loose ends tied up in the permit, a lot of things that are left open. So all the other permits that you have for a particular project have to be closed out at the time of building finals. So
Hey, Daniel, let me know when you can hear me. My guess is there's some internet issue at your end.
during that time, so
Daniel, excuse me. We lost you again for about 15 or so seconds.
oh,
At
good grief.
last quarter of that slide.
Okay, on the building final here, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Apologize for the technical difficulties, everybody. Thanks for staying with me. All right, so back to the building final. This is what you'll be calling out once you've completed your project and you've had all the other parts of your permit closed out. So the biggest thing that we see on the building final that's often missed is not closing out the different types of permits that are attached to this project. So for example, open electrical, plumbing, and mechanical, all those things need to be completed at the time of building final. And so a good rule of thumb is to just go into the portal from that website link that we gave you at the beginning of this and to look at your project to see if there's any open permits on your project. As soon as those are wrapped up, then we'll come out and take a look for building final to make sure that it's safe to occupy. Okay, so you've had your inspection. What's next? So this goes for any part of inspections from your first ground to framing to structural. You might have a question on how to kind of move through the construction processes for each inspection. So if you didn't have a correction from your inspector, you've been given approval to proceed in the next step of the construction process. So you've passed your structural and you've got an okay to cover exterior, you may do that, and then we'll come back to look at the interior during your framing inspection. So for example, your project was approved for cover at your framing inspection, that means that you have been given the approval to insulate the project at this time. Sometimes, and again, once you check your permit and the results comments on there, you'll see a few different ways of us resulting that inspection. So typically you'll either see a failed, a partial passed, or a passed on any particular inspection. And unless it's been failed, and you have a partial pass without corrections, you should be okay to proceed to the next step of your construction process. And again, this is where you go to find those inspection results. So we've come out to perform our inspection. These are the different steps in order to go and look at those results. So under the Seattle Services portal, at the link there, you just type in your permit number and you're able to look at all of the related records for your particular address. You can also search by address, which is what people typically do if they don't have their permit handy. And again, that's gonna pull up everything you need to know about your project and what's pending and required. It'll show you all of your related records, your open mechanical permits, and your CN permits. And just leave that on there for a second while people can look at it. And that's a good thing to just check through the life of your project if you're not the one particularly calling out your inspections directly, but you can see how the city is tracking your project through this portal as well. Okay, we're getting some FAQs here on the inspection process here. Can I schedule an inspection for today? So yes, if you schedule before 7 a.m., it will be scheduled for the same day. But if you schedule an inspection after 7 a.m., it will be scheduled for the next working day. So a caveat on that, we're currently working under capacity. So this is kind of the golden standard here. We're trying to get back to being able to schedule same day and next day inspections. If you're joining us and you've been already going through inspections, you know that that's not necessarily the case right now, and you're looking at a lead time of about 1 to 2 additional days to get that inspection scheduled. So we're just advising people to, if they know they need an inspection, to try to schedule that ahead of time. You can schedule inspections pretty far in advance if you go to the portal and you click on the calendar date. But same day inspections, we're not really at that point yet, but we're trying to get back to it. And then the next one that we get a lot of times is if you can make an inspection appointment for a specific time. No, so we develop our routes depending on how our day is lined up. And so you can call between 7 and 8 a.m. at the day of your inspection. And we give you a 2-hour window during that time of when we'll be there to do the inspection. So again, there's that 206-684-8950 phone number. If you call that in the morning, you'll be transferred to the inspector that's coming out that day, and you can talk about what to expect.
Daniel, can I add something in there?
Absolutely, Yuvita.
Yeah, the time has been moved from 7:30 to 8:30 instead of 7 to 8 to call in.
There you go. Yeah, that's right, Yuvita. Yeah, so that'll be a more accurate time to basically get a hold of your inspector and be able to be provided a 2-hour time window of when we'll be on your site. And on the side here, some really big questions that we get a lot as well is a partial pass result on your inspection. So partial pass is essentially what we do as inspectors. We make the judgment of partial passing something that you might want to have an inspection on the same category again later. So for example, if you're building a new house and you have a detached structure as well, a DADU, and you're trying to cover the main house, but the DADU isn't quite ready, you want to do your structural inspection to cover the exterior of the main house. Well, if we were to just pass that, it would go away in the portal, and you would not be able to call that inspection again once the DADU is ready. So we basically partial pass it so that it gives you the ability to call that inspection out through the lifespan of the project, even after you've done one particular phase of it. So partial pass is good. You'll see that a lot of people will call it the building finder, and they're concerned about the project's not complete because it's just showing partial passes. Unless there's a lot of corrections and you've been unless there's a lot of corrections or you failed, then a partial pass just means that you're good to proceed with the next phase of your project. And then pending inspections, again, that's going to be produced by having those partial passes, allowing you to call those inspections out. And as long as you've performed all of the required inspections needed for the project, those pending inspections will go away at your building final. And can you continue construction if you fail an inspection? If you fail a cover inspection and you covered anyways, that's an issue when we will probably ask you to remove some insulation. So you want to be very careful about monitoring the inspection results that you get. And if you do have a failed inspection, then it's best to make those corrections, call out the inspector, and have us take a look at that so you can get the okay to proceed. Okay. And then here's what we have is our building inspection district map. So this is updated. So each of those districts are occupied by a building inspector. So if you're building in any one of those districts, you can expect to see that inspector on your job site, unless of course you'll get one of the floaters like myself out there to help out. So when you call in the morning, you can get a hold of any one of these inspectors if you call between 7:30 and 8 a.m. To talk about a time window and what to expect with your inspection process.
Hello?
Okay, so hello.
I'm just calling to join the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, folks. So I think that take
Any
some
questions?
our short presentation. Yeah, we'd like to take some questions now, so Yavita and I will be able to help out and answer some questions for you guys. I'm sure we have some will come up here.
This is Mike. Can you hear me?
Hi, Mike. Yes, we can.
Yeah, just a high level question. I know it's extremely variable, but in your experience, what is the quickest you've seen someone move from a first ground inspection through a approved building final inspection for, say, an addition on a residential home?
Well, so yes, the short answer of that is it largely depends on kind of the scope of the project, the scale, and the trades that you have assigned for it, right? So that kind of goes to more of a project management question. We can inspect as soon as each of those phases are ready, and so if it's a small deck addition, you'll have a lot of those inspections. We can move pretty quickly through that inspection process and get you finalized in a few months, even if you're able to do so. But yeah, it depends on the scope, but and the way that the project's managed through the lifespan of it. So, but yeah, I've seen some close up in less than a year on additions. If everything's dialed in correctly.
Less than a year. Okay.
Yeah.
And then just sort of a follow-up question. What's your experience for you listed all of the different inspections that would occur through the life cycle of a project. Is it reasonable to assume that there's findings on 60% of those inspections? Or what's your experience for successful passing on the first inspection?
Yeah. So when you say findings, I'm guessing you're referring to corrections.
Sure. Yeah. I realize it all depends on the thoroughness of your contractors, et cetera. But I'm just trying to put some reasonable scoping into a project to have planned.
Most of the time, you're going to see a pass or a partial pass on a project, assuming that the work has followed plans, right? So, one of the things if you have, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but when we're coming out to do an inspection, we want to have the stamp set of your plans available for us to look at on the site. That's one of the biggest first things. So unless you see a fail on your inspection, you're almost always cleared to move on to the next phase of a project. And we like to work with you guys as well. So there's oftentimes we'll have small corrections. So if there's small errors on a framing inspection, as an example, like you missed a couple of straps here or there, or you didn't complete your draft stopping, oftentimes we'll allow you to proceed to the insulation inspection so that we can examine that later. So typically to fail an inspection, there has to be some larger issue at hand.
I see.
But it does happen, and we do fail people. We want to make sure that these properties are built safe and according to the plan.
Okay. Thanks for the feedback, and I appreciate the presentation.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Or hosting. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bearing us from the technical difficulties today. This is our first virtual home fair, so we're kind of figuring it out as we go.
No problem. It's quite helpful. Thanks.
Can I add a little bit on that too? This is Yavita, building inspector too. So I think the question comes out, it's up to the contractor, how fast he wants to move, how good he is in doing his job. Because we're gonna just bring it up to the minimum as per code, which is gonna be on the plan, approved plan, stamp plan, because that's been reviewed, or SDFI, then it's pretty much not reviewed, but we are reviewing it as the project goes on. So we'll be the reviewer, but it's not much to be, it's pretty much the engineering should be there, but as Daniela said, little things here and there, we can go ahead and keep on moving the project, but make sure you make the corrections. And for me, partial pass, I'll put the notes as a correction notes, so that if I'm out and somebody else come in behind me as an inspector, come back and he can just read my notes and say, yeah, I need to look at that. I need to see this. I need to see that. Coming in for insulation inspection, and also for partial pass. If once we put a pass on an inspection, you cannot you cannot call in for another inspection like for framing or structural. So if we put a pass on the structural, and you cannot, the structural stops right there. Cannot schedule another structural. So you always put a partial, and we can talk to the general contractor on site, and also we can put a notes on our reports saying that it's okay to move forward. You can cover the exterior wall, but these are the corrections that you need to make. And sometimes we just, if I know the contractor, I'll just tell them, yeah, take a picture and then send it to me for the little corrections that they make.
Yeah, our job is to make sure that the property is built to the building code, which we're currently inspecting on the 2018 Seattle Residential Code. You can pull that up on Seattle.gov's website if you ever do want to look at what the code requirements are. And so, yeah, as long as, and a lot of the work is done too during permit reviews. So we're making sure that the proposed project is in accordance to to 2018 building code, and that it's built in accordance to the zoning laws at the time as well. So we're just making sure that the property is safe and okay to occupy at the end of the day. So, any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. My name is Jim, and can you hear me?
Hi, Jim. Yes.
So I'm almost a year and a half into a basement remodel. I'm going to have to get that permit extended because I'm not even close to being done. The only inspections I've had so far are, one is an advisory inspection from the city of Seattle that was super helpful. This was several months ago. And I've also had the groundwork inspected for the plumbing by King County. So my understanding is, and I'm sorry, if you listed all the inspections earlier, I must have missed that, because I'm thinking that my next inspection is the plumbing rough-in, which will be done by the county. And then after that is the electrical inspection. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you have, what I'm understanding, you have a basement remodel, and then you're also doing a side sewer. So you're going out into your property and doing a side sewer as well?
Yeah, the side sewer was replaced this past summer.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
can
Yulia.
I answer that, Dana?
Yep.
Yeah, looking, I think the question will come up from you. Should I have foundation? Should I have setback? Should you just working you were working inside the perimeter of the existing building, so you don't need a setback. So for those kind of inspections, you don't have to call it in. I'm looking at, hearing from you, I think the next inspection you'll need is framing. Once you get all those, the plumbing, the electrical, mechanical, already okay to cover inspected. And then before you insulate, then you call in for framing. Then we'll take a look at that. And the structural, we can also take a look at the same time if you have any structural stuff that's in there. But other than that, as I said, you don't, unless if you're putting in a new footing because you're putting in a new beam that needs a new point load going into a new post, then that's, then the foundation, because you have a little footing there for the post. But other than that, if you're just reframing the whole basement and just removing walls and putting in new walls, nothing else rather than just being a framing inspection once you get all the other inspections okay to cover.
Once I get all the other inspections, but and so that's my question.
Correct.
The plumbing, rough-in, and then
Electrical.
Those are the only inspections I need to have before the framing and structural, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. And then after the framing and structural, then it's insulation, correct?
And then you can go ahead and insulate, and then you call in.
Very good. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Welcome.
Yuvi, it looks like we got some.
Can anyone hear me?
Come up in the chat. Yep. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Keith.
Hi, Keith.
Hi. I'm having some issues. I'm building an addition onto my garage, and I've had the plans drawn up, but I'm on a corner lot, and the city is saying that the additional, the previous address I have, they're saying that that address is not valid for, and my address should be on the main street, which is Genesee.
Your
It's
question
really
is about the address?
Pardon me?
So your question is whether or not you need to have a new address for your addition?
Well, what the city is saying is that my address is on 42nd Avenue South, and they're saying technically that in order to build my garage or my addition the way we have it drawn up on our blueprints, Genesee Street would have to be considered the main address. It's a really weird thing.
That happens oftentimes. You're creating a dwelling unit above your garage. Is it going to be like a DADU?
Well, there's going to be a basement under the garage, which can be used as a living.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah,
that does come up. Go ahead, Evita.
Yeah, I think the question should go to the land use people. They are the ones that gonna address that issue for change of address and anything that's been established before, and now you're trying to change it or trying to show that, oh no, this is it, this is how it's supposed to be. But we don't do that as inspectors. That's gonna be a land use inspector that needs to address it.
Yeah, and I'll follow up too on that. I'm actually gonna drop in the chat here a link to our SDCI tips page. If everyone can take a look at that, this is a really, really helpful resource for you as homeowners on resources at the city that you can research. This is kind of a compiled list of resources that you can go through to get that question in particular answered. There is a land use section on that tips page, and it's going to have context for you. It's going to have information on how to proceed with that question. But based on what I'm hearing, yeah, when you're adding a dwelling unit on your property and it's away from the single family residence, often that does come with a different address. We see that all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's an attached addition. But what the report I'm getting from downtown is that when my house was built in 1958, and when they built the house, they didn't state on the paperwork that 42nd Avenue was the front of the house, which is my mailing address. So they.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Which causes a lot of problems here.
Yeah. I think you should reach out to the land use department of SDCI. I think they'll be able to help you out with that one a little bit closer. Unfortunately, yeah, we're building inspectors. We don't necessarily deal with that stuff too much, but the land use people certainly can help you out.
Okay, so would I have to get like a real estate attorney or something like this for something like this?
Again, you're gonna have to ask that question to the land use. I'm sorry, it's about as helpful as I think we can be on this one.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for your question.
I'll check with. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll check with them. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
I have a question. We are considering closing off our front porch and extending the living room. What kind of permits would I need for that?
Closing off your front porch and extending your living room?
Yeah.
So if it's a question regarding permitting, you're going to want to contact the permitting office. I think we got a phone number here for you. Yavita, did you drop that in the chat?
Yeah.
Permits? Okay.
So let me just, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not you're not moving out your building, you're just enclosing the porch, which is already existing.
Correct.
And then you just want to open up your living space inside your living room, correct?
Yeah, pretty much where the window is, make a walkway. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that will just need an SDFI. That scope of work is just very little, and you just need to call the permitting office downtown, or yeah, not call now. You can just go on Zendesk. There's a new tool that's out there for us now that you can go in and everything will be answered. And the process, since our building the building is close to the public, that's where we are going nowadays. So just go on Zendesk online on the City of Seattle, SDCI, and get an SDFI permit for that, or throw the question there, and you can go through the process that way.
Would you mind posting the link in the chat to get to the?
I'll post a link. I'll post a link for you. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. 316.
Yeah, that's for permitting. It's Zendesk.
Good question. This is something that comes up a lot for these smaller projects. What's actually required? And what Yuvita is saying, there's a link to the subject to field inspections information and how to proceed with that here in the chat. So subject to field inspection permits, those are just going to be your smaller over-the-counter permits. They typically get through plan review much faster and allow you to get started on these smaller projects quicker. All right, any other questions?
I have a question. My name is Ming.
Ming.
The first inspection will be before groundbreaking or after excavation?
So
Just for
before
new
you,
one,
yeah, go ahead.
for a new building or for an existing adding on?
Addition.
Addition.
Ad-
Do you
I
have
a
any foundation work?
Yes,
Yeah, so it'll be first ground.
just
Yeah.
before groundbreaking.
Yeah, before you
Correct.
excavate, you call for first ground.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And that will be the site inspector, not the building inspector.
Setback also.
No, so they do the first ground, then you dig your dirt for your foundation, and then put your rebar in for your foundation, and then we'll do both setback and foundation together when we come to look at your footings.
Okay. About the setback, if my lot depth is 100 feet, my backyard setback should be 25 feet or 20 feet.
Okay, if you're gonna be adding anything in the back and it's per plan, make sure you get, because now what we're facing nowadays is buildings that's been built a long time ago. And,
Okay.
you know, the fence have been constructed with neighbors agreeing to each other. We want to establish your property, so you want to get a legal survey to really establish your property corners. And then they can go ahead and also shoot your corner, building corner from there, or they can pull it out from the
I
string.
found a one corner. I don't need a survey, right?
Should be 3 minimum, because that's how you're going to square it off.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Jean. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I have a completely different question. I live in a 70-year-old house, 70.
Okay.
I bought it 20 years ago. It has a number of small projects attached to it, or inside, or skylights in the roof and things like that have been done over the years. Some before I bought it and some after I bought it. There has been no permitting whatsoever, except for on a couple of major electrical system projects. Is it possible for me to engage inspectors, an inspector or inspectors, to walk around and look at these things and advise about safety?
Yeah, that's pretty, yeah, no, we don't get into your house unless if you have a permit, construction permit. That's what
Okay.
we gotta be.
I believe everything is safe, and most of the stuff has been in for for more than 10 years now. So, all right. I will tell you that the one time I went to get a permit for a small thing I wanted to do on the house, there was a problem related to setback, and And so I was sent to the variance desk. I was absolutely sure after I read all the materials that I would be able to get a variance, but the project itself was going to cost me $1,500 and the variance fee was $1,300. So I simply, that's how I learned my attitude about permitting in Seattle. It's like, it actually doesn't make sense. So, especially for small things. But it would be, and I guess I could simply hire a builder to come and look at all my stuff instead of trying to go through anything, out of your office. And of course, there are different points in time. But okay. And I can't. I'm trying to come in through your website to simply see a catalog of permits or of projects permit wording, requirements wording associated with different projects. I can't find a way in to find those materials. It's just really frustrating for small projects. I mean, eventually, the ones where I've done something, I mean, I really have found paperwork and read it carefully, and but it's I'm sorry, it's just the question of what needs a permit and what are the rules related to the construction. It's simply not an easy thing for ordinary citizens. And I had, so never mind.
No,
your big business is major construction projects. I'm a small situation, and I appreciate that the call was set up, and it got me sort of connected to your site in ways that maybe will help me in the future when I go to do research. So I'll hush now and let everybody else get back on.
You're okay. To follow up here real quick, are you able to view the chat feed on our chat here on this meeting? I gave a link to the SDCI tips page, and it's kind of a comprehensive list that's kind of evolving as questions like this arise especially for the smaller projects that you're referencing. There's really good resources in there to figure out what's required and what you can do about your particular small projects on there. It's a really good resource. So that might be a route you can take to get some more information. So that's SDCI tips for everyone that's joining us on mobile. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm not breaking ground. I'm doing a second story addition. So what would be the first inspection on the second story addition?
Can I answer that?
Yep, go for it.
Yeah. So for the second, you're going to take your roof off and put a new one all together in, new level, a new living space above. Is
Yes.
that or just a
Yes.
dormer?
That's exactly what we're doing.
Okay, yeah. So we don't need any foundation unless if they require that you need to put a new post in, but not, then you just go ahead and take your roof off and start building up, and the next visit will be before you cover your exterior wall, which will be a structural framing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have kind of a follow-up to that question because I might be doing something similar. Could you provide comment on seismic retrofitting inspections? I assume that would be handled by the structural engineer that would do the drawings, but where would a seismic retrofit inspection fit into the flow?
Yeah, that will be, so usually if that's what happens, if you're going to add on top, then you have to strengthen up your foundation down below. So you might be starting with the work down below. And usually there's I've seen a couple companies that are doing that in Seattle area, in the city. They're doing pretty good. So I just have to engage them, and then they come in and they do with the approved plans that you have, give it to them, and we'll come in, and they pretty much know what they're doing. So they'll call in for inspection when they have to, unless if you have somebody from California that doesn't know the system, then it'll be get usually the sill plate, anchor bolts, and all the connections to the foundation, hold downs, all those things. Go ahead and put those in, and then call in before you cover or insulate the pony walls.
Okay, so that would be part of the structural inspection. There's not a specific seismic
Correct. Just a
inspection?
structural.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
it goes for structural.
Okay.
And a lot of these seismic retrofitters, they have engineers at hand that produce those drawings that, and they typically call in the inspections themselves as well. So a lot of the Seattle seismic retrofitters are handling the stuff pretty well.
Okay, thanks.
Can a general contractor do that seismic work?
They can,
Say
yep,
that
as
ag-
long as they get a stamped set of engineering plans through the city that's approved. Anybody can perform it as long as if they are working off a set of approved plans and are licensed to do so.
Okay, great.
All right, any other questions?
I'm not seeing the link that you put. You said there was one for SDCI tips. I'm not seeing.
Correct. I can throw that back into the chat just to have it pop up again, but it's the web6.seattle.gov/dpd/cams.
And anecdotally, these used to be called client assistance memos, and that's why it doesn't say tips in the URL. So
Yeah,
that is where you'll find all of our tips.
thanks, Daniel.
Okay, could you say that? Okay, it's the one you just posted that talks about PAM list.
That's right. Yeah, click that link.
Oh.
That'll take you to the tips. Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Yep, and that's a really good resource for anyone on the call if you want to follow up and do some research on your own for your particular question. If we run out of time today, it's got a lot of good stuff in there.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And for seismic, Andrew has posted a link that on the chat about seismic. So
Great.
Good information. Any other questions?
I don't know if this is more of a comment, but if your colleagues at the land use department could hold a similar webinar, that would be quite useful. It sounds like this is the first time you've done this. I don't know if
It
they
is.
have as well.
And we can also
Can
for
I
everyone else.
interrupt?
Go
Can
ahead.
I interrupt? Hi, I'm
Sure.
Wendy. I work for SDCI too. This is actually the third year we've done virtual presentations. I've posted the link several times. It's actually, there's one on seismic retrofits from last year. If you go to that website, all the presentations we've done and recorded are there for the last several years. And there might be a presentation there that has the information you need.
Okay, great. I'll take a look.
There was a presentation last weekend on seismic retrofitting from SDCI, so that should be available soon, I would think.
Take
Yeah,
us about a week to get that up.
Yeah, the question that came in here last person was land use. So do we have any land use virtual meetings like we have right now?
I don't know if it's specifically land use or what the specific land use topic is, but we've had seismic retrofits, stormwater, landslides. This presentation, there's, stormwater, and a couple more next weekend as well.
Okay.
And different ones the last few years. I don't know what they all are off the top of my head.
But I think there's a real person meeting at the end of the month, and I think they should be there. If you have time, you can, February the 25th on Saturday at the Filipino Community Center in South Seattle. So I think everybody will be down there. Is that true, Wendy?
They should be.
So yeah, for everyone on the call,
Okay.
just to reiterate, there is still an in-person home fair happening on February 25th. So if you have any further questions, you can attend the in-person event as well. And they're going to have all the different departments there.
We're going to have a few other city departments, and most of the divisions within SDCI available.
And if I'm correct, it was the last time I was in one, even the SPU was there, and City Light were there.
Yes, we have City Light, SPU, SDOT, Puget Sound
SDOT,
Energy, and Office of Housing also coming, as well as most of SDCI.
I like this question in the chat, and I was curious if you guys can do the same, is can you review the permit application process even though this is an inspection webinar?
Could you say your question again, please, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm reading from the chat. Somebody asked, can you review the permit application process?
No.
Okay.
We are inspectors. We are not, that's pretty much done by a different, the permitting section. So we are just doing inspections here, field
Thank
inspections.
you.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
I have a house built in 1949 that's on kind of hillside, and I'm thinking of adding a third floor. What is the first, and it's a daylight basement. My question is it usually if it's daylighted, it's more on a sturdy foundation, or, and the next question is, how do I go about getting the permit or whatever? I mean, just tell me.
Okay, can I answer that, Leah? That was a good question. I think the first step for you would be, are you the homeowner?
Yes.
Yeah, and you said it's in Magnolia?
No, it's in Ballard in the Sunset Hill area.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so if you can, because what we'll need engineering. So if you can get an architect and get an architect to work with you, see, and you can explain to the architect, this is what I want to do.
Okay.
I want to add on, yeah, go that route before you get a permit. So, and then you can come back to the city and say, yeah, I need a permit for this.
Oh, okay. And they can also take care of that, won't they? Be able to get.
Correct,
Okay.
they do.
Okay.
Mm.
Oh, that's the best, easiest way, it looks like. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Get any question there?
Well, if anyone doesn't have any further questions, I say we could probably cut this meeting a little short. What do you think, Wendy and Dan?
I think that that's fine. We do, we've definitely promoted our in-person home fair on the 25th at the Filipino Community Center. I've gone ahead and put that address and information there. Paul has a question. Paul? Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to put an addition onto my house, and the electrical panel and the wiring were put in the mid-50s. And should I have an electrician come out and tell me if it's adequate, or can someone from inspections come out and tell me if I have to make changes to the existing house?
You have a licensed electrician, a
Okay.
licensed electrician.
Okay.
Yeah, your electrician will determine if you need to upgrade your panel or not. Like we see that a lot for additions where you have to go that route. But yeah.
So that could be handled after you get the permit then.
No, before, I mean, he's gonna give you an advice and see what you want to do, and then and then you pull your permit after that.
Oh, so you want me to get the electrician out?
Yeah, but just
before
remember,
you-
it should be a license, and I don't know if they have to be registered in Seattle. But I know they have to be licensed first in the state.
Okay, so when I apply for the permit, I have to have
He'll be,
him come out
he'll be the
before I
one, he
apply for
can
the
be the one,
permit?
The
he
electrical
can be the one
permit.
applying it.
Pardon?
Electrical,
So he would have to come out before I apply for the permit so I can say on the plans what's going to be done to the existing?
exactly.
Okay.